Yeah, welcome to everyone watching. I'm Sapphire. I am a chapter leader with Impact Travel Orlando. Impact Travel Orlando is one chapter of Impact Travel Alliance, which is a global community and a 501c3 nonprofit aimed at improving the world through travel. Okay, so ITA represents the largest community for socially and eco-conscious travelers. There are more than 20 other local chapters worldwide. Through our local chapters, we host events designed to help travelers explore in a way that has a positive impact on local communities, as well as our environment. Our events are designed to help travelers understand how to travel sustainably from anywhere in the world. Our goal is to provide travelers with the resources and tools they need to book travel experiences with confidence that they're having a positive impact on our world. Okay. We put this event together to help celebrate diversity and to push for more representation of different racial and cultural backgrounds within the travel community. In today's world, unfortunately, not a lot of people know the struggles or experiences that people of color go through. So today we have a great group of women joining me. They are here to share their stories as well as give us perspectives as Black, Asian, and Latina travelers. It's our hope that this dialogue will give you some insight as well as the knowledge to become more understanding and better equipped to be an ally. Okay, I'm just going to give a moment to let the speakers introduce themselves. Right now I have Carmen on the screen, so if you want to just start.
Hi, everyone. My name's Carmen. I am from Los Angeles. I am your world traveler. I've been around many different countries, which is where I met Sapphire.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy to be here, share my experience. Thank you.
Great. Ashley, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. My name is Lacambra. I have a blog called Badass Travels. I'm based out in Los Angeles as well, but I live in Orange County. And yeah, so I'm a flight attendant, and that's how Sapphire and I know each other as well. And just, I'm excited to be part of this panel today and talk to you about our experiences as BIPOC people, travelers. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Iromuanya. I am a flight attendant and also a Navy reservist. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, but I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I also have a blog called Travel the World with Joy, and I also have a YouTube channel under my full name, Joy Iromuanya.
Okay, Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Layne. I am the CEO and founder of Lavon Travel and Lifestyle, which is a private bespoke luxury travel company. I design and curate bespoke experiences and travel for discerning travelers around the world. I work mostly with private design and private curation for all types of travelers and helping them experience the best that they can around the globe.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. So as I mentioned, we want to help celebrate diversity. So the first thing I asked our speakers to do is to share an experience that is positive or negative related to a travel experience, related to their racial and cultural backgrounds. So since we already have you up, Tiffany, did you want to share? Or someone else?
Sure.
Maybe? Okay.
No, I'm
Okay.
happy to share.
Oh, sure.
You know, I've been traveling since I was a young kid, first domestically, then internationally as soon as I could. I have been to over 57 countries now, and 6 continents. So I have experienced a lot. I have engaged a lot. Most of my travel experiences have been positive. I tend to approach my travels with an understanding of cultural boundaries around the world and cultural understanding around the world, and try to remain open and positive as much as possible. If I have experienced anything which I felt was challenging, I generally try to approach it first with positivity and understanding that different cultures see things different ways, and they might not have been exposed to other individuals or cultures. Obviously, I do not leave much room or grace for things that are blatant, but I tend to be a very open and positive traveler and try to keep things as positive as possible when I'm traveling, regardless of what I may feel and experience that's happening. But for the most part, in my travel history, I've been, I guess, very blessed with having mostly positive travel experiences.
So I am a first-generation Filipino American. Born and raised in Orange County. Both my parents came from the Philippines, and just the way that we grew up, we learned to work very hard because my parents came from virtually nothing. And with that, we were taught to be frugal. So for us, travel was a luxury, and it just wasn't something that we did really. Like, we would drive down to San Diego, go to Legoland, go to Disneyland. But I used to read a lot of books, and that opened up my mind and made me want to travel more. And so that's why I became a flight attendant, actually, travel. But it was very interesting coming into it. With the cultural background that, like, to be frugal. And I think there's so many different types of travel. But for me, actually, when I jumped into that world of travel when I was like about 22 years old, there were certain times, the number one question I would get is, where are you from? And I'd be like, oh, California. And they'll be like, no, where are you from? And I'm like, California. But, I understand that they were trying to figure out, what kind of Asian I am. And I love my Filipino heritage. So I love explaining it to them too. And, through gritted teeth, I understand that they don't mean to be a little racist. And, and so, and I just try to keep that global perspective of like, they're probably just curious. They really want to know. And so I'll tell them. And, so that's not a harmless situation. And there are other times when, I've been to Amsterdam and there's a group of guys walking towards me and my friend, and they just say like ching chong or something very ridiculous. And, we didn't do anything about it. We just kept our heads down. They're, super tall people. So we were, I wasn't going to do anything and start a fight. But, so it's a give. To me, it's a give and take. And to me, it's just all just not knowing. It's just being unaware.
Yeah.
And so I think that it just, it's just been really interesting in that sense.
Awesome.
But like Tiffany said, like Lavon said, like always just be positive, and accepting and understanding.
It's a good outlook.
I think my background is actually a lot like Ashley's. I'm also first generation American. My parents both came from Nigeria. My mom was a single mom of 6. So travel was definitely not a priority. And now that I think about it, both of my parents, I've never seen either of my parents even drive on a highway or like an interstate. So, we were always taught to kind of, just stay close to home and, put money towards things that were important, like bills and education and different things like that. My older sister is an English professor, and she started going overseas to teach English. And that's kind of what sparked me wanting to travel and me kind of wanting to make it more of a priority. And that's actually why I joined the Navy and why I also became a flight attendant. But even just like the last 5 years, I feel like I've grown so much since I've been traveling. And sometimes I even cringe about just like how ignorant I was just about, like little things. Like I even remember when I heard that people would like go overseas for like healthcare. And I was like, but America has the best healthcare system in the world. And then a quick Google search, like I quickly learned like that's not the case. But it's just like, even still when I travel, there's just like so many things that I'm still like learning every day. And I still am just like, it took me like I was 27 when I first got my passport. So, you know, I'm still like learning so much through my travels. So now I just want to, you know, encourage all of my friends, pretty much anybody that will like listen, that, you know, that they can learn so much about themselves through travel, and they should make it a priority.
I kind of wanted to share, I know we're actually all women in this discussion, in this panel today, but and that's actually a really special place to be when you're traveling.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you ladies have, I'm sure a lot of you have traveled alone, and it is actually a really different experience traveling alone than when you travel with a friend or your family or a group of people, because you learn so much about yourself in that time. I remember traveling alone for the first time, I think in my mid-20s. And people were always like, why are you doing this alone? Like, aren't you scared? And I think because, you know, for people that do travel in groups or have traveled since they were young, it's not necessarily scary, but there are things that as women, I think we do have to take in to consideration, like maybe not staying out too late, or, you know, not getting, I know I have these kind of precautions for myself, I guess. Like when I go out, I'm like, I can't get too drunk, like I'm by myself. And they're kind of like these sad things that you still have to think about as women traveling alone. And you guys can't tell, but I'm really, really petite. So it's not that safe all the time for me, but it is a beautiful experience, because when you travel alone, I've noticed that people gravitate towards you because they do see that you're alone. So for example, I was in Greece. My friend was with me for half of the trip, and then half of the last part of the trip, I was by myself. And I just spent it with new friends and new people, and I'm still friends with them today, like you. And
Yeah.
so it's this special experience when you're traveling alone, because people do gravitate towards you in a really, I feel like a special way, that you kind of carry on these relationships going down. But anyhow, traveling alone as a woman, I think I always tell people you should do it once in your life.
I was
Just
actually
do
alone when
it
I
and-
met you.
Yeah.
So
And it's really, I think it's a special thing. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Like Ashley and Joy, on my mom's side, I'm also a first generation American. She's from Trinidad. So she's Indian. Though I'm white passing, so I'm half Indian, but not everyone can tell. So I don't have the same experiences based on race that my mom or brother do, but I do get to like see what they go through. And most of the time I agree it's positive. People are interested in her culture, where she's from, food culture. I don't know, Trinidad has a big food culture. So stuff like that. So I definitely appreciate you all sharing. All right. Going back to travel, have you guys felt there were any specific instances where you received any mistreatment while visiting a new place, hotels, restaurants, or just the city in general? No. So it's been a pretty positive one overall.
I actually went to Naples, Italy 2 years ago. And one of the things I was really surprised about was I was on Tinder because I'm single, you know,
Yeah, go for
ready
it.
to mingle. And a lot of the men thought I was a sex worker.
Wow.
And once I got on base and I really started talking to some of the other like military folk, what they basically explained to me is that a lot of Africans aren't able to get like work visas, so they become sex workers. So with me being on the app and them not knowing that I was there on like a military assignment, they automatically assumed that I was either a prostitute or a stripper.
Wow.
So that was, you know, very like enlightening to me. And that was something that I've never experienced before. And, you know, it's also really sad that, you know, like people go there to have like a better life. And then they're like, you know, that they're like desperate and have to kind of turn to that. But that was something that I never even thought of. So that was definitely an eye-opening experience for me.
Wow. Yeah. How did you react to that when you talked to them?
Well, at
May I
first I
ask?
was really offended.
Yeah.
And I was just like, excuse me?
Naturally.
No, I'm here for the military. And then they were like, oh, sorry. And I was like, unmatched, And then after I learned that, I was just like, okay, let me delete, because I'm just not even interested anymore. But it also, took, it took a while just to be like, why do people keep asking me this?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was definitely like mind blown, like,
Mhm.
and even looking back, like the way I reacted was like, very offended, very harsh, very, but then after like having some understanding, I was like, wow, like, and that's also sad that, now when they see, like African American woman, Black woman, like that's the first, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's all of Italy or if that's just like Naples, or like I'm not exactly sure. I was only there for 2 weeks, but that was just something that I encountered.
Mhm.
Sadly, I don't think that is um, just Italy. Um, it happens in other countries as well, and it's a sad nature of the beast in many situations where people are, like you said, going to seek hopefully a better life, and they can't get the opportunity, and then they're stuck, and this is what it resorts to, unfortunately. So it's a whole nother ball game, but yeah.
I am actually remembering now, I think I try to block these experiences out of my head, but I went to Israel, and so I'm half Persian and half Latina or Salvadorian. And I have a chain that my dad gave me from when he was young, but it has a Farsi um, symbol on it, basically. So I was walking through the airport, and they stopped me and they say, "Excuse me, ma'am, we need you to step over here." And I was like, okay, no problem. Now I have an American passport, you know, I really didn't know why they were stopping me. I was like, okay, this is a security thing. But as things going through the news now, the Palestine and Israel situation is, it's been serious. It's been a big issue for a long time. But they do. So I think part of the assumption is that if you're Muslim coming into the country, you may pose a threat, or I'm not really sure. They won't say, but I was questioned for like 4 hours. And I was like, I'm just an American girl. Like, I'm just trying to, visit here with my friends. And I was with my, friends. They're from Mexico, and one is from the United States. But it felt really discriminatory. I remember, like, I was like, there's no reason why I should be here for 4 hours and questioning, and why are you here, who is your father, like there was just, and it was repetitive over and over. It was almost like being in one of those like jail questioning interview rooms where they were like, she's gonna crack, and I was like, my answers are not going to change. And it kind of makes you a little scared because you don't really know what's going to happen, but I wasn't doing anything wrong. And anyway, that was one of those experiences where I definitely felt uh, discriminatory. It was a discrimination. It was just, I couldn't even believe it. So my friends actually were so irritated. They were like, I can't believe that happened. And they had to wait. So we were there for 4 hours in the airport. And finally we were, kind of let go, or what. So that was my one, I think, big experience with that. And but also understanding maybe the history behind the two countries, and like Muslim religion, and the Israeli conflict. But that was my experience with that. Yeah.
Sorry, you ladies had to go through that.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
No, I personally, as a traveler, and I did want to bring up, what you brought up earlier about, being a woman traveler. I think that's where, we do have to be very, very aware, very cautious. And just today, so here in Nassau, so that's one thing that we've been experiencing here. We were in a different island. We were in Harbor Island. Felt completely safe. Eleuthera, completely safe. Here, a little bit more catcalling, a lot of aggression. And so the big smile that I had just went straight to RBF, like, don't mess with me, bro. And the fact that you have to change your whole personality just to feel safe is crazy. We even straight up put chairs like under the doorknob in our Airbnb. But as far as this, so one of, through traveling, one of the things I do try to do is try to blend in, really, as best as you possibly can. And that's for me, that's a good way to immerse yourself into the culture and also to feel safe, really. It's a defense mechanism, I guess. So with that, I haven't had, a lot of discrimination other than, those silly little boys that, with the slurs, but I'll chalk it off as ignorance,
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's crazy.
Good. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things we have to do. We just have to not stand out, show people that we're not messing around, like you said, we're the RBF, and that is one of our biggest protectors.
Yeah, when I was based out of New York, I was in Brooklyn, 21, 22 years old. I try to walk like I was tough. I'm 5'2".
You're little, yeah.
I was like big. I was like, where am I in New York? But you try to walk like, don't mess with you kind of thing. And you learn you pick up these little things to just protect yourself, Yeah.
So, and I didn't mean for this to be an all women's group, but it turned out that way. I'm definitely glad though, because I appreciate it, Yeah, it's a thing. It's another thing to talk about, but it's definitely valid. All right, so moving on from those experiences you've had, do you think that there was anything that non-people of color can do to be supportive in those situations, or just anything to make them more aware? Because I feel like they're there when this is going on. They're just not noticing it.
Yeah, I would say it's not probably a factor of not noticing it. Just, either a fear or lack of knowledge on what to do or what to possibly say. Obviously, you would just hope from a humanity standpoint that if anyone sees anything, going on that's just completely offensive or wrong, that they would hopefully assist or do something, just as humans. I don't think, at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. Just be an ally to being human. And I think if we can just start there and have that as a basis, then it would really just cover all bases, to be honest with you. It's a difficult situation to just, for anyone, I think, to see something and know what to do or where to kind of intervene if it's necessary. I would myself, if I see something odd, I would take pause at first and kind of be like, how, what, when, where can I assist in this situation? Whether it's, putting, is it going to put my own self at risk? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? So I think, but I do think there are times when people can speak up, can step up, can, let people know when they are in the wrong. And I think that's just part of being, human again, regardless of your race, your background, or anything. Just there's always a place to correct someone in a right way, I think, and or make someone aware of a wrong in a right way that that won't cause an escalation, that won't cause things. So it's just a matter of having that I guess gumption and that know-all to do that and to find that place to do it correctly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so definitely speak up to those people watching. So moving on, I'd like to talk more about the lack of representation we see in different areas of the travel industry. Like I said earlier, Tiffany owns her own travel agency, Lavon Travel. So why do you all think that it's important to support Black-owned or people of color-owned businesses, travel businesses? Obviously,
since I own
know
one,
it's
I'll
pretty
say
obvious.
Because
Yeah,
you
go
still
ahead
can.
and take the show.
I think, like anything, that if we're going to support businesses, minority business, woman-owned businesses, I think it's important because I think it's important to recognize that we are in a certain space.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, I work in the luxury travel space. So statistically speaking, overall, travel advisors, travel agents, travel, business owners, 6% of that whole professional community are Black. That's just speaking on the Black statistic. And I work in the niche of luxury travel. Now, I, as an individual, as a professional, and as a business owner, represent, I would say, about 1 or slightly under % of people that work specifically, Black-owned female business owners that work specifically in the luxury travel space. So now we've just gone from already this to like
that, yeah.
And it can be very challenging in a sense, because even within my own industry, I have felt challenges. I have felt working with vendors and things like that, differences, how I'm approached, how I'm looked at. Oh, you have luxury clients? How would you have luxury clients? Not said directly, but you can get that sense. Yeah. That, if I'm sitting at a table with, some colleagues, who have different backgrounds, that the indication is very focused on, more, I would have to prove that I have that versus the assumption that, someone else might. So within my own industry, there are those challenges. I work, I sit on a couple boards that hope to foster better understanding and relations in my industry for that. But in regards to supporting Black-owned businesses, especially in the travel space, sorry,
it's okay.
Especially in the travel space, I think that I'm going to stop for a minute. Sorry, I'll be right back. Especially in the travel space, I just think that we have so much power in travel. We spend about $6 billion estimated dollars for the Black traveler a year. And that's a lot of money. But yet those travelers are purchasing through other platforms. They're purchasing through OTAs, but they are the same travelers that want to support Black-owned businesses, but they don't realize that how they spend their money in travel and how they purchase their travel is effectively going to non-Black-owned businesses. If that's their goal, to support a Black-owned business, then they are not doing it by how they purchase their travel. So it's just an education factor as well.
Yeah. So I guess it just takes a little more research as well.
Yeah.
To know where you're putting your money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's just as easy to book that, say, hotel, just to keep it on a very simple. It's just as easy to book that hotel through a travel professional as it would be online. But if you book it through a travel professional, you're actually supporting that travel professional's business.
Yeah.
And if you book it through booking.com, you're supporting the major company that is owned in the Netherlands and probably not Black-owned.
Yeah, probably some white CEO man somewhere.
Exactly.
So going back, what are some other things that you think travelers can do to improve inclusivity in the travel community?
Like how to help advocate for more diversity and inclusivity.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a big question, you know, but
I know it can
the
be a
number
loaded
one,
question.
it is, but it
Yeah.
is so important. It's such an important
True.
question to ask, you know, and the number one is to just bring awareness.
Mhm.
And I mean, as hippie as it sounds, like love, like
Mhm.
that's my thing. Just like practice love and like what Tiffany was saying with humanity and being more inclusive and, you know, in promoting small owned or, you know, small owned businesses, Black owned businesses, people of color in businesses, you know, because they're adding, like they were very passionate to put those things, to curate that itinerary for you know, for
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
And you know, and I personally, like I think it's so much work. I think it's I personally love doing it because I love planning, like planning
Mhm.
my travels, and I like
Yeah.
Google Map, you know, pin it and everything. But you know, and I did ask when I was going through this, I was asking myself, how come I don't go through travel agencies? You know,
Mhm.
because I don't always have the time. I'm a student. I work full time. You know, and um, it took me a lot of work. I was trying to plan this trip while doing, you know, during my finals. But anyways,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So if you were like Tiffany was saying, like seek it out, like, and share your knowledge to other people. And you know, with my blog, it has been at a little bit of a rest because of COVID.
Yeah.
COVID travel,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
get it.
travel was down, now it's back up, so more content coming to you soon. But with that, like, what I want to try to advocate is to provide more resources to my followers, to anybody who asks, really. Like, you know, there are agencies that you could go through, but really do the research. I just think that there needs to be more research online, and I think that's the best way to add inclusivity, because it's all
Yeah.
about knowledge. It's all about knowledge. It's all about love. It's all about support.
Yeah.
And you know, the travel community, like, you meet travelers everywhere. Like, as a traveler, like, you know, if you have that mentality, you're gonna love them.
Mhm.
You know, like, because they're adventurous, you know, open-minded and willing, and so, you know, you could just share that information with them. And you know, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I get it.
But yeah.
Get it.
So yeah.
Yeah. And like a
That's
important
actually
thing.
interesting.
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. It's
No,
just
go ahead.
about knowledge.
Mhm.
What people don't know, what they don't know. And I don't get offended by it because I understand as the travel landscape changes and what people have been used to, you know, we've been in an internet travel booking era forever. But that landscape is quickly shifting, specifically because of this post-pandemic world now, where people realize the challenges that came when they didn't use a professional, and also just the knowledge and expertise. You know, using a travel professional and supporting, you know, and in that turn supporting is not taking away from your joy of looking for travel, booking travel. Like Ashley said, you know, you love that whole process. And, you know, but at the end of the day, when you're done with your process, just choose a different pattern on how you book it. And that, and when, you know, and in that, now you've combined, you know, doing what you love, but also supporting a Black owned business in the travel industry. Now, that's not just even for myself, who is a travel professional. We're talking maybe even Black owned hotels or tour operators, or, you know, if you've got to seek it out, sadly, you got to seek it out a little bit more than other things, but they exist and they're there. So if that's really something you want to do, then just find a way to do it, because you can, and you know, you can support financially and have a great experience in your travels by doing so.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Even like supporting Black owned restaurants in a place. Like I was just in Richmond, Virginia, not by choice, for a layover. And I had some skepticism, you know, knowing their history with Confederacy and all of that. So I try to do this in general, but I felt like a bigger need to reach out and support Black owned restaurants or cafes, businesses while I was there. So, and I found some great places, had a great time, you know. If there's anything you guys want to add to our followers, or not followers, our viewers, to help them be just anything they need to know about being an ally, what would it be?
Well, actually, one thing that I could talk about is, with Stop Asian Hate and that movement right now.
Yes.
When I started working again, I actually started to become scared, and being in Orange County too. There's, even when I was living in the Netherlands in the beginning of COVID, and I heard a story about this girl, a student in Leiden University, who got beat up just for being Asian. I just found out recently a flight attendant, a colleague in New York, just got beat up for being Asian, and they're our age too. And the news shows like the elderly, which is such a cheap shot. Come on. And I don't know if this is true. And for me, I was silent for a very long time because, collectivist mindset, again, keep your head down, don't start confrontation, don't be angry, just let it happen. And it's starting, and just like Black Lives Movement, it's a movement, and it's stirring an anger. And I just think one thing to be aware of is that, and I talked to another flight attendant. She said that she was on the beach in Miami and she was legitimately scared for her life, just for being at the beach, just for being Asian. And so these things are happening, and people aren't really talking about it much because it's so weird to talk about. For me, it's weird to talk about, because it's so unreal. But it's happening. And again, that's where awareness and educating yourself comes from. If you look at our history of America, there was a lot of bad things happened to Asian Americans that, people don't know about. And so that's something. And again, that's where you have to, just being a woman and being Asian, like that's where I try to act tough and try to be all gangster and stuff. And, don't mess with me. I know how to kung fu, hit Bob,
There you
go. But yes, that's just something that, so more people should know about.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that
in the Asian community.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that we're just now hearing about this, because the Stop Asian Hate movement is new, but this has been going on, like you said, for a long time. I think back to Vietnam historically, I don't know, but a long time in America.
Japan internment camps, World War II.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
let's not open that can of worms. There's also forgiveness, and this country can, this world could turn around. Again, that's just advocating love, just love, and
respect your neighbor, respect. Yeah, that's all it is. Respect at the end of the day.
It shouldn't be that hard, but seems like it kind of is for some people.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah, and I think that's why travel is important, because it opens your mind and your eyes to other cultures and how they do things. And like an example, being Filipino, I didn't really understand why a lot of Filipinos who lived in California had the Filipino star tattoo flagged on them. I was like, why do they do that? That's weird. And then I went to the Philippines and I saw how they operated and just their resilience, and how I completely understand why they would be so proud of their culture, because they have gone through hell and back, and they will have 2 shirts and they will give you the shirt off their back. And traveling opened my eyes up to that.
Yeah, good. Okay, I have a few questions in the chat.
I see a question.
Yeah, there's 2. All right, I think we already covered this, but has your cultural background ever been a benefit on your travels and interacting with others?
A benefit.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
it is a great question. I mean, I wouldn't say a benefit. I would say my education has been more of a benefit than my cultural background. But when you travel, you really have to approach travel with an open mind and an open heart. It doesn't matter who you are, because there are going to possibly be challenges if you are, of a person of color, or, come from, a very identifiably different background than the destination you are traveling to. And I think it takes, pace and grace, as I like to say, because you have to, I say it all the time, you have to pace yourself into a destination you're going to, and you have to give grace. And that's not saying just be accepting of anything. That is not what I'm saying at all. But you can't ruin your experience because of potential ignorance that you may encounter. And it is going to be difficult for you to try to correct everyone you come into contact with on a situation. Mm-hmm. And if you want to enjoy your holiday, I say just have pace and grace, because you can have a polite conversation with someone if they seem that they're going to be open to you correcting an action that they did or something that they said. And I think that's important. But I just think we can't change the world. It's going to take one step at a time. And that's what traveling is supposed to do, is to allow us to engage with different cultures and exchange understandings and exchange knowledge and exchange experiences. And that's why you will find people in other countries that have a little bit more grace and understanding, because they themselves might actually be global travelers, or they might have experienced more. But then the individuals that haven't, because maybe they live in a small village in the middle of nowhere and they've never seen anything, like they don't even have a TV.
You could be like the first Black person.
Exactly. Like there's no Kardashians going on. Like there's no,
Yeah.
And you can't, and with that, if you encounter someone like that, don't take the immediate offensive, route. Take a minute, take a beat, because, we as Americans tend to be very quick with the whole, aggressiveness thing. And that's American. That has nothing to do with our race. Because we, as American travelers, we sometimes are very unaware of our presence in another country. And we have super high expectations that country is supposed to adapt to us when we are in someone else's space. So, and then we want to call everything like offensive because of it. So again comes pace and grace with everything that we do. I've seen it happen with my clients. So it's
I bet you have so many stories.
So that's why I could say that. But no, so I think, it really comes to that. And to answer Darnell's question, I don't know if my cultural background has ever been a benefit to a destination that I've been to, or interacting with others. I guess it's had its challenges, but I'm not sure I'll have to think about if it's ever benefited me. That's going to take some thought, but that's a great question, Darnell.
I will say that I went to Egypt a couple years ago, and one of the cool things was like when I would just be like walking down the street, people would start yelling Nefertiti, Nefertiti, and I don't know, I thought that was kind of cool. And there have been like times when like I'm in Europe and the guy, like random people are like, like solidarity, like, and I'm like, yeah, so so there are some times when or even like Japan, or just like these random places where there's kind of like this like connection because of my culture, that it always, and like even when I was in Jamaica, I was like looking for goat meat because we eat goat a lot in Nigeria, and some of the people were like, "Are you Nigerian?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, I did Ancestry DNA, and I'm Nigerian. I'm 26%, and it was like, "Oh, that's dope," So I have recently been like connected with people because of that, and it always kind of surprises me, but it makes me feel really good, So.
I'm going to call you
I just want to answer the flight attendant question.
Yes, there is. Yeah, so have the airlines you work for taken any actions in working to prevent situations like that for flight attendants? So I know the airline Ashley and I work for, I don't know if I said I was a flight attendant at the beginning, but I am. The airline we work for, I know that when the BLM movement first started, they weren't exactly in support of that. I don't know if anyone remembers, there was a photo floating around the internet where a flight attendant wearing the BLM ribbon was, you remember that, Ashley?
Kind of vaguely now I kind of do, yeah.
Yeah, he was called a terrorist online, and all these people started bashing him and stuff like that. And so the airline came out and said, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to support the movement on our aircrafts. So that was not a good moment for us at all. And it was, a big slap in the face to a lot of the colored, well, all of the colored people that worked under the company. They have moved forward with this. Now we can wear our BLM, our pins or whatever you want to wear. But that, it took the death of like George Floyd for them to be like, okay, yeah, you can support the movement. So there's been growth, but it's so I don't know how it has been for Joy.
Yeah, see,
But
I was looking at that question a different way, and I don't know if I just like misunderstood it.
yeah, I mean,
But
there's multiple ways you can
yeah, because
interpret it.
I was wondering if it more pertained to like safety during like
Mhm.
layovers.
Oh, that's a
And
good one. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say like my airline, like they actually have like city docs where they kind of tell you, like what's going on in that country or that city. And there have been times when there's like rioting, and they have like moved our layover hotels out
Mhm.
of, an area because there were protests or rioting going on. I know that there are some layovers where we have armed guards that like transport us to our hotel.
Yeah.
th- and they all, they make sure that we, are never on the first floor, that they try to put us kind of like on the same floor.
Mhm.
So if we, need each other, we're kind of close by each other. So I do think that like my airline does, a lot to make us feel safe, because like when I go on, my annual tour for the military, there can be 26 of us all going to one location, and it's like, you see somebody and you're like, I think he's American. He might be in my unit. And then you guys show up at the same hotel and you're like, oh, you're in my unit.
Yeah. So you don't know. Yeah.
But they're not, trying to make sure that you guys, know your, so I do think that my airline does, a lot to make sure that we're safe. When you were talking about just like the support and, them trying to be more inclusive, I definitely do feel like with everything that happened to George Floyd, I do
Mhm.
think my airline really like stepped to the plate, and they really like every week they were having, these like speakers from like Dr. Bernice King to just like, so many people were like they had Brian Stevenson, they had they really stepped up in my opinion, and I
Yeah.
was like really like honored and just like really impressed, because like in the military it was just kind of like, we're not having those discussions, like
Mhm.
not in this space. And for them to say that, like every week, and they were also having these like discussions online on Workplace where we could ask questions. They were giving us like pins, they were doing, so I was really impressed by the way they like stepped up. And even also with just like everything that they do for like the LGBTQ
Mhm.
plus community, like having parades and different things like that. I really think that m- my company is the best that I've seen. So
Yeah.
I'm like honored to work for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I know he worked for it too. So I have been following that and the
Yeah.
news as it's been happening.
Hmm.
So yeah. And then now that we bring it back, like you mentioned the safety and security, I do think that mine and Ashley's airline, does protect us and, have the same rules about, hotel floors, not on the first floor. We do get security in some places. I know that right now we're having layovers in Tel Aviv and they have extreme security for the cruise, with everything going on there, which is important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Kind of what one of the other panelists was talking about was kind of, keeping an open mind, making sure you're staying positive. Sometimes you're going to have bumps in the road with travel, especially if you're on the road for a long time. Not every experience is positive, and that's just life. But I can't think of a time that I've been discriminated for the color of my skin or my cultural, like just that one experience that I told you guys about. And so I don't know if I'm like that's probably all I have with that one. And I can't think of it being a benefit or a non-benefit. But I think also too, when you meet other travelers, their minds are open in a different way. And I feel like as long as we're kind of normalizing that experience, our consciousness starts to change too, I think.
Yeah, it's also just about being who you are, because that's what, I have one more question in a minute, but that's what makes us who we are. I feel like I bond with people over my culture when I meet others who share the same background as I do. If I meet people from the Caribbean, and people don't know that I'm half Trini. So, it brings me closer together with others. I'm grateful for that. We did have one last question. Oh, from Darnell again. Based on your travels, where have you felt the most welcomed and embraced as a person? I think that's a good one.
I think personally for me, Jamaica. I felt so much love in Jamaica. I also got like 3 wedding proposals. But I'm being from Lincoln, Nebraska. I went to Jamaica in 2016, and that was like the first time I'd been to like a kind of like a predominantly like Black area. And I was there for military duty, but we spent, like 7 days on an all-inclusive resort. And then we spent 7 days in Port Antonio. And we actually got to like go out and actually like interact with the locals. And it was just like so much love. And like, they were calling me their sister. And, it was just like, we really like connected. And I felt like, I don't know, I kept telling them, I was like, I feel like I'm home, but, because it was just like, we were eating like a lot of food that, like I eat back home, like a lot of like West African food. And it was just kind of like the vibe, like they were just like, even the people that didn't have a lot, you could just tell that like it didn't really matter. They were just like, their big thing is everything is Irie, like everything is great, like, and they just seemed like they were really excited to just like welcome us. And mind you, I went with, I think there were like 25 of us, and they were like, there was one restaurant that we were going to go to, and it was closed. And this woman was like, let me call the guy. And she like called him, and he came in with like 4 other people, and they like cooked for us. And they were, they sat down and they like talked to us, and they were so excited. And then we were like, this food is so good. Like, we want to come back tomorrow. Like, are you guys going to be open? And they were like, we will come back for you, So they were just like very welcoming, and they were, the way they like embraced us and told us about the culture. And I think for me, Jamaica is where I felt like most welcomed and embraced.
Having just come back from Greece, literally 3 days ago, I would say, I don't know if it was the excitement that people were back into the country or a combination thereof, but I felt so welcomed. The first place I went was in northern Greece, and people were just like, "You're American?" "You're the first American we've heard in like," they were like, "Welcome." They were just so excited. They hadn't literally heard an American accent in over a year. It you know, when you think about that, it's really interesting. If you are, you know, a foreign country who's used to hear, you know, seeing a lot of American travelers during a certain time of year, and you haven't heard an American accent, and then you hear one, and it's like, whoa, we're back. Yes. And, you know, but, you know, the Greek nature, very familial, very just, you know, togetherness. And I really felt that. I mean, I was there for 3 weeks. I was there for 3 weeks. So everywhere I went, it was just very welcoming. And, you know, I always got a hello. I never got anything. I felt, you know, I mean, I ate myself through God knows what, in that, because they like to feed you there. Like,
yeah, and the food's good.
It's like an old grandma who will, you don't eat enough. Like, you know, like, you don't eat enough. I will, circling back to something Carmen said before we close out, I did have an interesting experience at one of the hotels I was staying. I was a very boutique hotel in a little outskirt ways up in the northern part of Greece. So it wasn't like you know, it was one of those places where I think a lot of locals go for holiday and things like that. So I went into the breakfast area and I went up to the lady that was doing the espressos to ask for espresso. She was like, "Oh, American." She was super excited. She was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Oh, I love your hair stuff." She goes, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." And then the most interesting question followed that. She goes, "Well, where's your grandfather from?" And I was like, DC? Like, I was just like, I get what she was saying, like, because processing that in her mind was how it came out. You know, she's trying to heritage-wise figure out where I was coming from. Now, I could have chosen to be super offended by that. And, you know, whatever, but I didn't. I got it. I processed where she was coming from. Yeah. And I said, well, you know, I grew up in America. I'm completely American, you know, and nationality and everything. And she was like, "Oh, okay." Like, you know, and, you know, that was it. Like, it just, but I understood what she thought she wanted me to say. And I understood where she was coming from, and it might have come out weird and I could have been totally offended by it, but I didn't. You know, grace and faith.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that everyone here like seems to keep going back to is just respect, understanding, taking a moment to think. This can all help you in your travel journeys. We're going to go ahead and close out. We're a few minutes or like a minute over. It's okay. But thank you to our speakers for joining us. You know, you're amazing. Appreciate it. Thank you to everyone watching and everyone who attended. You'll be registered for our newsletter to stay up to date on our future events. The newsletter will also include roundups and resources for traveling more mindfully, like blog posts and tips with the best practices. Okay, and if you are interested in joining Impact Travel Orlando or a chapter in your city, there will also be a link to an application form in the post-event email. Thank you again for joining, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. All right, bye everyone.